On August 7th, 2002, Congress, directly by an act, made Lafayette an honorary citizen of the United States of America. What led to this honor? Motivated by a zeal for liberty, the young, he was only 19, an idealistic Gilbert de Motier, Marquis de Lafayette, who married into the Noailles dynasty, a powerful noble family close to Louis XVI, bought a ship and secretly traveled against the king's wishes, sailing from France, a difficult and lengthy voyage, landing in South Carolina in the mid-1777 to help fight during the American War of Independence. At the suggestion of Dr. Benjamin Franklin, then serving in France as an American diplomat, and who had met and was impressed with the ardor of the Marquis in Paris, recommended Lafayette to Congress, commissioned a major general in the Continental Army in July by Congress in Philadelphia on his agreement to serve without pay. Thus he fought as a volunteer and soon came to the attention in August of General George Washington, who treated him like a surrogate son. Wounded at the Battle of Brandywine, he recovered from the injury at the Moravian settlement in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and following the encampment at Valley Forge, returned to France, where he encouraged Louis XVI and his ministers to support the American cause against the British. This was already facilitated, as it turned or pivoted, with the news that British General Sir John Burgoyne had surrendered at Saratoga, October 1777, thereby encouraging the French, who were now prone to be engaged in the American conflict with a common enemy. Lafayette returned to America in April 1780 with the assurances and promise of a French navy to aid the Americans, and played a key role during the latter years of the conflict of the Revolutionary War. From a letter dated March 27, 1781, by the Marquis to Thomas Jefferson, Governor of Virginia, in the collection of the Princeton University Library, Lafayette laments and tells of regret over a setback that since the return of the British fleet from New York City in the Bay of Portsmouth, Virginia, he had lost every hope of an immediate operation against Portsmouth. How much disappointment is felt by me, your excellency will better judge than I can express. The bond between Jefferson and Lafayette stems from this Revolutionary War correspondence, for in April 1781, Jefferson welcomed the now 23-year-old Lafayette to Richmond. The timely arrival of Lafayette and his troops helped keep the city from falling into British hands a second time, endearing him to Jefferson. The setback regarding Portsmouth, while troubling for the Tidewater, Virginia campaign, set in motion the events that ultimately led to Yorktown. Under Commander-in-Chief General Washington, the Marquis de Lafayette was one of 3 division commanders in the American Army during the siege of Yorktown. He commanded the 1st Division, the 2nd Division led by Major General Baron von Steuben, while the 3rd under the command of Major General Benjamin Lincoln. British General Charles Cornwallis, 1st Marquis Cornwallis, could not egress from Tidewater by land, and the French Navy, led by Admiral Comte de Grasse, blockaded the River Jameses and York, and thus he had no other recourse than to surrender at Yorktown, October 19, 1781. From this print, Liberty, Marquis de Lafayette, and James Armistead Lafayette at Yorktown. Among important but still too little known Revolutionary War figures, James Armistead Lafayette must be included as an enslaved black man who spied on the British forces at Yorktown. Armistead, working primarily for Lafayette, traveled back and forth the British lines, the redoubts, gathering intelligence, useful and critical. When he later gained his freedom, he took the surname of the Marquis. A few months after Yorktown, Lafayette returned to France. In January of 1782, as a recognized hero, he was promoted to the rank of Maréchal de Camp, full general, and made a member of the Royal and Military Order of Saint-Louis. He spent the next several years developing his acumen as an international anti-slavery advocate and took on many other social justice causes. The British defeat in America set in motion diplomatic protocols which cleared the way for American diplomats to negotiate with their British counterparts an end to the hostilities. In 1783, Lafayette, living in his townhouse in Paris, was well aware of the arrival in the city of the American delegation of diplomats and staff that included his friends John Jay, Dr. Franklin, and John Adams, along with Henry Lawrence from South Carolina and William Temple Franklin, secretary to the American delegation, who, by the way, was the son of William Franklin, the 13th and last royal governor of New Jersey, who in turn was Dr. Franklin's illegitimate, though natural son, the mother being unknown. Thus, William Temple Franklin was Dr. Franklin's grandson. The American delegation had gathered to pursue the preliminary articles of peace and to garner recognition of their new republic. The signing of the definitive treaty of peace and friendship between His Britannic Majesty and the United States of America, Paris, at the L'Hôtel York, on September 3, 1783, in effect ended the American War of Independence and established sovereignty for the 13 former American colonies. Lafayette declared when the peace treaty between the United States and England, Great Britain, was signed that America is sure of her independence, humanity has won its case, and freedom will never again be without an asylum. News of the American and British treaty was delivered by a diplomatic courier, October 31st, to Elias Boudinot, President of Congress, then assembled in Nassau Hall. Princeton, at this time, was briefly the nation's capital. Elias Boudinot happened to be the brother of Annis Boudinot Stockton, the muse of Morven in Princeton, renowned poet and widow of New Jersey signer of the Declaration of Independence, Richard Stockton. Concomitantly, General and Mrs. Washington were in residence at Rockingham, a house in the country, just a short distance from Princeton. Here, Washington wrote his farewell orders to the armies. When the word of the peace had come to Trenton, the town celebrated with public processions, proclamations, church services, illuminated windows everywhere, and a private ball at the French Arms Tavern for the town elite. It was in 1784, not quite a year later following the Treaty of Paris, when Lafayette arrived once again in America. He returned to the United States with great fanfare and embarked on his first grand tour throughout the country that included a circuitous, even convoluted itinerary, traveling to 9 states from August 1784 to December 1784, with visits to New England, an extended stop at Mount Vernon, where he stayed as guest of the Washingtons, continuing on until his departure from New York City back to France. From the New Jersey Gazette for August 16, 1784, several references. Lafayette had arrived in New York on August 7th, the writer for the New Jersey Gazette notes. This extraordinary character, after a course of brilliant and useful services in the American Army, has, we are informed, for some time past, been assiduously employed in promoting the American cause and interest in Europe, where his exertions prove of no small advantage to the United States. He now, we are told, revisits this country purely from a desire of seeing it in the peaceable enjoyment of the fruits of a contest in which he, with so much magnanimity, at an early period, embarked his fortune and his life. The Marquis de Lafayette arrived here, August 9th, Trenton, from New York. He was met at some distance from town by a city troop of horse, a number of officers of militia and other respectable inhabitants who had the pleasure of attending him some miles and escorting him into the city. At the coffee house, a crowd of people waited for the pleasure of seeing him and to pay a small tribute to his merits. That compliment was returned by the patriotic nobleman. Befittingly, he enjoyed an enthusiastic welcome wherever he went. Throughout his travels, there was a lively and ongoing exchange of correspondence. In reply to a letter from George Washington, Lafayette writes retrospectively, "Since I have left you at Mount Vernon, my dear General, we have passed through Philadelphia and Trenton." Lafayette further responds to Washington's tender expressions of friendship and notes that everything that is admiration, respect, gratitude, friendship, and filial love can inspire is combined in my affectionate heart. In your friendship, I find a delight which words cannot express. Lafayette states in a letter to his friend James Madison, also retrospectively, "I have pretty rapidly passed through Mount Vernon, Annapolis, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Trenton. There I was happy to find a Congress, very respectable, who I hope will do a great deal of good." Annapolis had previously been a locus of fond memories, for in 1781 he was described by one grand Annapolis lady, Mrs. Benjamin Ogle, as "the divine Marquis de Lafayette is here, and he is quite the thing." By the by, following his visit 1784 to Annapolis, and in gratitude for his service during the War of Independence, the Maryland General Assembly resolved that the Marquis de Lafayette, his heirs male forever shall be, and each of them are hereby deemed and taken to be natural-born citizens of this state. Congress moved to Trenton, New Jersey, where it was in session from November 1st to December 24th, and met in the French Arms Tavern, located at the corner of King and 2nd Streets, today Warren and State Streets. The original building, circa 1730, and extant until 1837, when it was demolished. In its day, it was considered the most impressive structure in Trenton. For 2 years, from 1740 to 1742, it was the official residence of Royal Governor Lewis Morris. The property, having passed through several hands as leasehold, was sold in 1760 to Samuel Henry, an iron manufacturer, who made it his residence until he in turn leased the property to Jacob Bergen in 1780 for use as a tavern. Before opening the building as a tavern, which he named 13 Stars, Bergen made extensive structural changes in the building. He added a 3rd story, converted 2 of its first-floor rooms into one room, 20 feet in width and 43 feet in length, which became known as the Long Room, perfect for concerts, dance assemblies, and meetings. For a short time, John Cape took over the leasehold and changed the name to the French Arms. When Bergen returned to management in 1783, he retained the French Arms name. It was during this time that a French dancing master, then based in Philadelphia, Louis Dossier, took rooms in the tavern and announced that he is setting up a dancing school. In advance of his arrival in Trenton, Lafayette sent a letter to Richard Henry Lee, the 4th President of Congress assembled, dated the 6th of December, that he would wait upon Congress and would be happy to receive what commands they may please to lay upon one of their most affectionate and devoted servants. The pending arrival of Lafayette from Philadelphia to Trenton caused Congress on December 9th, 1784, to appoint a special committee consisting of his old friend John Jay as chair and a member from each state upon his arrival in Congress to greet him. Maryland delegates had yet to rejoin their political colleagues assembled. Prior to his visit, Congress on the 9th passed multiple resolutions, among them one assuring Lafayette that Congress continued to entertain the same high sense of his abilities and zeal to promote the welfare of America, both here and in Europe. Lafayette and Trenton, on December 10th, the most distinguished visitor received by Congress whilst in session, and the citizenry of Trenton indeed jubilantly welcomed in their midst the august presence of the Marquis de Lafayette. This watercolor, Trenton sur le Delaware, depicts several large houses in Trenton on the cliffs overlooking the Delaware River. Note in the foreground to your right an image of the Trent House with its distinctive cupola. Though dated 1798, this view of Trenton by amateur artist Edouard Charles Victorien Colbert records the city as it appeared, perhaps not so differently during Lafayette's 1784 visits to Trenton. Also known as the Comte de la Moulinière, Colbert was a titled French naval officer who visited the United States in the 1790s. Although he spent a good deal of time in culturally diverse Philadelphia, he traveled throughout much of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and up to Quebec. Colbert published a record of his experiences in America titled Voyage dans l'intérieur des États-Unis au Canada. At the time of Lafayette's visit, the Trent House, the property, was then owned by Colonel John Cox, a wealthy Philadelphian and patriot who had served as Deputy Quartermaster General in the Continental Army and turned the grounds into a supply depot for Washington's army. In addition to other matters of governance, December 10th, a proposal was initiated to present Lafayette with a standard from the Yorktown victory that was made and approved. Immediately after the close of the congressional session, Lafayette was formally received by John Jay and his fellow members in the long room of the French Arms Tavern, and took the opportunity of conveying to him the warm regards of all the delegates assembled. And here they communicated to him the nature of the resolutions of December 9th. Thereupon, the Marquis made an address, and his remarks were recorded in a number of broadsheet newspapers, such as the Political Intelligencer and New Jersey Advertiser, published in New Brunswick, Tuesday, January 4th, 1785. While it pleases the United States and Congress so kindly to receive me, I want words to express the feelings of a heart which delights in their present situation, and the bestowed marks of their esteem. Since I joined the Standard of Liberty to this wished-for hour of my congratulations, I have seen such glorious deeds performed and virtues displayed by the sons of America. May this immense temple of freedom ever stand a lesson to oppressors, an example to the oppressed, a sanctuary for the rights of mankind, and may these happy United States attain that complete splendor and prosperity which will illustrate the blessings of their government, and for ages to come rejoice the departed souls of its founders. On the very same day that Lafayette was received by Congress, he was also received by the legislature of New Jersey, then sitting in Trenton, and a highlight of their session and a highly emotional experience. A full transcript of the proceedings appeared in the New Jersey Gazette, Trenton, for Monday, December 27, 1784. Excerpts follow. To the Honorable the Marquis de Lafayette, Sir, we, the representatives of the citizens of New Jersey, convene in council and assembly, cheerfully embrace the opportunity which your present visit to this state affords of paying you that public mark of respect which is justly due to your distinguished merit. With pleasure we recollect that, by a love of liberty and a sacred regard for the rights of mankind, you left your native country and all the endearments of domestic life and voluntarily engaged in the hazardous cause of America, in her late contest with Great Britain, and we acknowledge with gratitude that the signal services which you have rendered this state and the other states in this union have greatly contributed to the complete establishment of that freedom and independence which they now enjoy. To which the Marquis made the following answer, excerpted here. Sir, in the friendship and esteem of the state of New Jersey so kindly expressed, I feel myself the more flattered, as I have had on numerous occasions to admire the spirit and patriotism of her citizens, to which in trying emergencies our cause has been so signally indebted. It was my fortunate lot, sir, to have been admitted among you in support of the great contest. It shall ever be my happiness in zealous endeavors for the good of these states, to indulge the sentiments of my love and gratitude, and while the blessings of this revolution, so nobly purchased, will be eternally secured in the united strength and wisdom of this federal republic. Lafayette received honorific gifts during the trip, including citizenship from Maryland, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Virginia. Having bid a fond farewell to the Congress of the United States and the New Jersey legislature, Lafayette left Trenton for Elizabethtown and thence for New York City, and from this port he sailed aboard the frigate Le Nymphe for his return to France, arriving in January 1785. As befitting his celebrity, Lafayette would surely have been feted during his time in Trenton in 1784, receiving congratulatory accolades and huzzah, and it seems likely that music and dance played a role in the welcome for him as well. One could easily imagine an intimate music at home in the fancy parlor of the Trent House during the time Colonel Cox occupied the house, or a concert dance assembly taking place in the commodious long room of the French Arms Tavern. Remember that the French dancing master Louis Dorcier had already established a school for dance in the French Arms Tavern. He also planned for a complementary school in Princeton, as he sought to expand his income by traveling out to towns where dancing masters would be or could be greeted with approbation. Dorcier planned to alternate the Trenton School with one in Princetown and would teach all sorts of dances, the most in fashion, and principally the graces and manners. The minutes of the trustees of the College of New Jersey record that they decided their students should not take advantage of the pro-offered opportunity, being generally past that period of youth in which manners are formed. A straight-laced student offered his opinion about the dancing master. I believe it would be better for us if these Frenchmen were all where they came from, for a republic cannot subsist by useless accomplishments. It must subsist only by simplicity and frugality. This particular student view was not universally accepted in America, as throughout the 18th century, music making and the ability to dance were accomplishments through which good manners, taste, and politeness could be displayed in pursuit of refinement. Attaining requisite skill to play a musical instrument, to sing, dance, draw, and execute needlework were important fashionable skills to be cultivated under the tutelage of professional music instructors, masters of the dance, and artists. In colonial and early federal period America, taverns were undoubtedly a major phase in civil culture. An inscription and translation after the Latin in the Apollo Room, Raleigh Tavern in Williamsburg states, "Jollity, the offspring of wisdom and good living," a role taverns fulfilled as places of refreshment to enjoy in convivial company a tipple. The types varied anywhere from beers and ciders to wines and mixed concoctions such as flip. Taverns were also hostels for travelers, places of entertainment with spaces for card playing and games such as loo, whist, backgammon. Taverns often had musical instruments available for patrons to play. They were utilized as meeting places for assemblies for the most influential people in a town and were necessary for the well-being of a community as important democratic venues of debate and discussion. As evidenced in broadsheet newspapers of the period, it was the practice of tavern keepers to also take care in providing, in addition to more potent beverages, the best tea, coffee, and chocolate, cold meats, fruits, sweetmeats, etc., during the course of a concert or dance assembly. The French Arms Tavern certainly provided jollity, for it, like a number of other taverns in maritime Atlantic communities, such as Gadsby's Tavern in Alexandria and Fraunces Tavern in New York City, were among the largest public houses with capacious interior space dedicated for music and dance in colonial and early Federal period America. Note the musicians' gallery and dance floor at Gadsby's in particular, as it's probably close to the square footage of the French Arms Tavern dance assembly space. As a nobleman, Lafayette was no stranger on the dance floor. On one noteworthy occasion, the Marquis, who received a triumphal welcome in France in the aftermath of his time in America, danced a quadrille, a fashionable dance at the French court with Marie Antoinette in the Trianon Palace, and despite his progressive opinions, was still regarded with affection by Louis XVI. Music making and dance were collaborative endeavors, thought to be an important way to convey the felicities of social harmony. Our entertainment will include charming and arresting songs associated with the theater in Philadelphia and New York City, embracing the period of Lafayette's 1784 visit to Trenton, and will be interspersed with other theater tunes and various dance melodies associated with the minuet, cotillion, as well as English and French country dances. The minuet was the chief dance of ceremony and ritual and opened dance assemblies, whether at court in London, residences of royal governors, or long rooms, devised at the French court, and a dance form of which Lafayette was well acquainted. It was a dramatic and powerful dance using step sequences and a specific floor pattern in Z form. In accordance with rank and position, the minuet was performed first by the leading man and most important lady present, while the rest of the company watched, dancing in due course, serving to remind everyone of his and her position within the assembly. In addition, a group might dance a French cotillion or a fancy dance, practiced for the occasion. This allowed the dancers an opportunity to show off elaborate footwork and dexterity. Dance assemblies always included English country dances, the best documented group dance during the colonial and early Federal period. Country dances required less practice and preparation. In his instruction manual, The Art of Dancing, first appearing in 1735 and oft reprinted throughout the century, dance master Kellum Tomlinson summed up the learning process for these progressive dances for as many couples as will, which were performed by partners standing facing one another in two lines, the men on one side, the women on the other. Despite informality, country dances were not undisciplined romps, although this exuberant Hogarth image seems to suggest otherwise. Assembly decorum and manners dictated that dancers pay attention to instructions provided by the dancing masters, such as Monsieur Dossier. Tomlinson cautions and reminds, indeed, good breeding in regard to those with whom we dance requires our not being careless. There were rules of civility. Broadsheet newspapers published in maritime America in the latter decades of the 18th century carry notices of music and musical instruments for sale, concerts, arrival of dancing masters, dance assemblies, and news from the theaters. And as it turns out, there were regular revivals of music, comic operas by a host of English composers, Charles Dibdin, Samuel Arnold, William Shield, and Dr. Thomas Augustine Arne. Arne's repertory, he received a doctorate in music 1759 from Oxford, was especially esteemed during his lifetime and following his death, both in England and colonial America and well into the early federal period. And this is the case with two of his notable comic operas, Thomas and Sally, or The Sailor's Return, and Love in a Village. Both were produced in British-occupied New York City, for in 1783, British officers still garrisoned in the city continued to entertain themselves by mounting theatrical performances in the John Street Theater. The Royal New York Gazette for September 20th, 1783, announces, "This evening will be performed Thomas and Sally." The same periodical, the issue for October 15th, notes, "Tomorrow evening will be performed a comic opera called Love in a Village." The John Street Theater was originally built by David Douglas in 1767, who was also active in Philadelphia, as part of a chain of theaters for the American Company. It was New York's leading playhouse for 30 years and used for the last time on January 13th, 1798. Theater design in Georgian England was mirrored in colonial and early federal period playhouses, theaters, and so too the repertory on the candlelit proscenium stages. The typical design of a theater circa 1780 was shaped like a shoebox, with almost half the space consisting of the stage, the remaining areas containing the seating, the boxes, pit, and gallery. Wealthier patrons sat in box seats, which were raised on either side of the theater and faced each other rather than the stage. The object of sitting in a box seat was to be seen and admired. In addition, an evening's entertainment lasted from 3 to 5 hours, including opening music, main pieces such as Love in a Village, an epilogue, dance sequences such as the country dance you'll hear from Thomas and Sally, an afterpiece, which in fact is a short one-act or two-act play or farce, popular vocal and instrumental music drawn from the concert rooms that were generally performed during intervals, known as entr'actes, and after the main piece, specialty acts, and these could take the form of individual, couple virtuoso dances such as La Bretagne, though dating from the early 18th century, remained exceedingly popular, and a dance that Lafayette could easily have seen performed in France. In 1783, dance masters in Philadelphia, for example, were still teaching this dance. The complete theatrical experience could include other specialty acts, instrumental players of small flutes, or vocal music, rope dancing, trained animal acts, and other forms of entertainment, or could conclude with a general dance, often by all the performers. Alas, it is not possible to conjure up the probable appearance of the John Street Theater, but like its counterpart, the Southwark Theater, built in 1766 in Philadelphia, it was among the finest playhouses built in America. While there is no evidence that links John Street to a specific English prototype, it was still most likely conceived and constructed with English models, such as the Richmond Yorkshire Theater you've already seen, in mind. Over the years, in addition to musical theater, numerous plays of Shakespeare, David Garrick, and Richard Brinsley Sheridan were performed at John Street Theater. In the wake of the Treaty of Paris and following British military and ardent loyalist departure from New York City on November 25th, 1783, and for a time thereafter, New York theaters were dark as the town struggled to get back on its feet. However, concert room and dance assembly activity continued. By astonishing coincidence, Philip Fyle, a Hessian musician, an oboist, captured in 1776 at the Battle of Trenton, who stayed in America after the war to take part in the musical life in the new republic, is known to have appeared in Philadelphia concert programs in the 1783-84 season, and by 1785 was active in New York City as leader of the orchestra for the American Company. He also taught violin, German flute methodically, and copied music as well. Fayette is ironically best known for composing a ceremonial march in honor of George Washington, the President's March, said to have been first heard in Trenton in 1789 and later during Washington's inauguration as President of the United States at Federal Hall in New York City. The march was later fitted or newly set with the text, "Hail Columbia," by Joseph Hopkinson, son of New Jersey signer of the Declaration of Independence, Francis Hopkinson. Composers and music publishers in England and America were all too keen to bring out what I've dubbed play-at-home editions, featuring plate-printed music such as Mr. Handel's chamber solos, taken from his operas and oratorios, ingeniously or curiously arranged for all sorts of instruments, and celebrated, esteemed, and favorite airs from ballad and comic operas, especially from the quill of the eponymous Dr. Arne. His most successful early works were The Mask of Alfred, which includes the patriotic song Rural Britannia. Arne's pastiche comic operas, already referred to, such as all vocal afterpiece Thomas and Sally and Love in a Village, began to trend towards English dialogue comic opera, and Arne's gift for melody is evident throughout his vocal and instrumental music. Later, with Artaxerxes, he established a spoken, sung English equivalent of Italian opera, seria, as heard in England, primarily associated with Handel. Artaxerxes includes such signature songs as "The Soldier Tired of War's Alarms" and "Water Parted from the Sea." Thomas Jefferson owned a copy of "Water Parted," arranged for violin and a bass. Throughout his career, Arne played a significant role in making English operatic genres prominent in the London theatrical world. The music in Thomas and Sally is remarkably sophisticated, with recitatives and airs sung by easily recognizable characters, unlike the fashionable Italian opera arias steeped in mythology, as promoted by Mr. Handel. You will hear several vocal extracts as rendered by Sally, a young milkmaid betrothed to the sailor Thomas. Thomas and Sally was performed more often in England, America, and even Canada than any other afterpiece from the mid-18th to early 19th centuries. An early recorded performance of Thomas and Sally in America took place in Williamsburg on April 21st, 1772, a night from which, from his account books or register, George Washington attended the theater. The harpsichord vocal score for this musical play was widely available in the colonies in early federal period. Thomas Jefferson lists a copy of Thomas and Sally in his music collection. From Love in a Village, you will hear 3 songs, several composed by Arne. Those melodies not from the quill of Dr. Arne were borrowed from a host of composers active in London and whose music was in circulation, such as Mr. Giardini, an eminent Italian violinist and composer. The melodies set with new words to fit the plot of the play. The music to Love in a Village was also widely available in the colonies in early federal period in the form of harpsichord vocal score, or just as often reprinted in single sheets as famed airs, or celebrated songs, or favorite solos. The families of Thomas Jefferson and George Washington owned the harpsichord vocal score, and both men likely saw the musical play when it was performed in Williamsburg on May 1st, 1771. We round out our performance with a group of dance and theater music drawn from an important, though anonymous, publication, Complete Instructions for the Common Flute, or Alto Recorder, to which is added a favorite collection of minuets, marches, song tunes, etc., properly disposed for that instrument, and fitted now with the bass by Donovan Klotzbeacher, so the music can also be played as harpsichord, solo, or ensemble pieces, including a number of French-sourced dance tunes that are likely to have been familiar to Lafayette, as country dances and cotillions were also in vogue at court in France. The volume was published in 1780, London, by Longman and Brodrup, music publishers, and suppliers of all sorts of musical instruments to clients in Great Britain, America, and Canada. As a coda to our performance today, Lafayette accepted an invitation from President James Monroe in Congress to visit the United States. Throngs of well-wishers greeted his landing in New York City, and admirers lined the streets as he made his way to City Hall. Lafayette spent the next 13 months visiting cities and towns in each of the 24 United States. He traveled to battlefields, Brandywine, where, of course, we know some years before he had sustained a wound. He addressed Congress of the United States and visited the tomb of his friend and mentor, George Washington. He met with friends, among them all the then living presidents of the United States, Adams, Jefferson, Madison. He was honored by countless processions, receptions, and balls. By all accounts, Lafayette was gracious to all, as he was acclaimed a hero. Washington's friend, and one of the last living generals to have fought in the American War for Independence. Archaeological evidence and investigation at the Trenton House, conducted by Seitler and Hunter Research Inc., by chance discovered an opaque green glass commemorative intaglio bearing the name of Lafayette, possibly a watch fob seal or sleeve link or stud, perhaps produced as a souvenir memento during Lafayette's 1824 visit to Trenton, en route to gala festivities in Philadelphia. Lafayette certainly knew the Trent House in 1784 and later in 1824. A national celebration of Lafayette's tour fueled feelings of pride and patriotism throughout the United States, and Trenton citizenry were at that time once again witnesses to history indeed.
wish to